They say you never really see a person's true colors until you watch them at 2 in the morning, half drunk, sliding off $1,000 bar stool with their pride hitting the floor harder than they do. That's exactly what happened that night at Sakura Palace. Yeah, that's right. The kind of place where the sushi costs more than my rent and the regulars wear watches that could pay off my student loans. There I was, Andre Santos, standing behind the bar, just a black waiter wrapping up a graveyard shift, when the Victoria Steinberg, crashed onto the polished hardwood, sake splashing all over her designer dress like some ridiculous performance art. That it's funny, you know? You spend years learning how to move quietly, how to read a room, how to help without making people feel small. Because, let's be real, a black man offering a hand to a white woman wobbling in high heels at 2:30 in the morning in Manhattan, well, that can go sideways faster than you can say lawsuit. So I kept my distance, used my softest voice. Ma'am, let me help you. Hoping she'd see I wasn't the enemy. But Victoria, bleary-eyed, hair a mess, looked at me with this strange clarity. You're not like the others, she whispered, holding onto the wall like it was her last lifeline. Why are you being nice? Everyone else wants something. Honestly, I didn't have a good answer. Maybe because I grew up watching my mom work 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. Maybe because I knew what it felt like to stand alone, feeling invisible but also exposed. Or maybe because I'd seen too many people at Sakura Palace treat kindness as some kind of transaction, especially from guys like Morrison, our so-called manager. Still, I called her an Uber, waited outside in the cool city air, just making sure she didn't topple into traffic, and that was that. Or so I thought. Next day, I walked into work expecting to blend back into the wallpaper. Instead, Chef Hiroshi was waiting for me, stone-faced, told me to head to the office now. I knew that tone. Inside, Morrison and a couple of his cronies from corporate were waiting, all smiles like they'd already won the game. Morrison starts flipping through a folder, dragging out every word like he's savoring a steak. We've had complaints, Andre, about your behavior with customers. You're blurring boundaries, harassing intoxicated clients. He flashed some security photos, me helping Victoria into her Uber, especially clients of Mrs. Steinberg's caliber. Let me back up a sec. If you've never felt your stomach turn to stone, try sitting across from a man who's twisting your decency into a weapon. That's what Morrison did. He dressed it up in polite language, professional standards, protecting the brand, but the message was loud and clear. Guys like me are always just one step away from being a problem. Didn't matter that my record was spotless. Didn't matter I'd only done the right thing. Morrison wanted me gone, and this was his moment. Thing is, across town, Victoria wasn't sleeping off a hangover. She was talking to her lawyers, digging into Sakura Palace's hiring records. Turns out, she wasn't as drunk as she'd seemed that night, and she'd started noticing the same patterns I had. How Morrison quietly shuffled Black and Latino staff into the shadows. How the place got wider out front every year. She was ready to blow the whole thing up, but I didn't know that yet. Friday, a nervous intern handed me a corporate resignation letter. Cost cuts, they said, but everybody knew Morrison had what he wanted. Chef Hiroshi slipped me an envelope full of tips he'd stashed for months. A rare act of solidarity in a place where most folks just look the other way. I called my mom on my way home. She was working late, as always, cleaning offices on Wall Street. When I told her what happened, she just asked, "Did you do something wrong?" I said, "No, Mom. I did something right." Back at our old apartment in Queens, my mom poured coffee into chipped mugs, sat down in her cleaning uniform, and listened as I laid it all out. How Morrison's game was the same old story, just dressed up fancier. Sometimes life makes you pick. Accept injustice or fight back, she said. You know what I always did. I grinned for the first time in days. My mom's never bowed her head to anyone, and she wasn't about to start now. Come Monday, I went back to Sakura Palace, not as staff, but as a customer, watching the whole scene from a different angle. Morrison strutted the room like he owned the place, kissing up to rich white regulars, ignoring everyone else. That's when Victoria walked in, asked for a seat at the bar, and started watching, just like me. Our eyes met for a split second, a tiny nod, like we both knew we were seeing the same cracks in the walls. That night, I got a text from a strange number. Coffee tomorrow at 9. Corner Deli, 72nd and Columbus. I barely slept. The next morning, Victoria showed up in jeans and a simple blouse, looking like anyone but a billionaire heiress. She didn't waste words. You were fired because of me. Morrison says I filed a complaint. I didn't. Here's the proof. She slid her phone across the table, showing an email she'd sent management. Nothing but praise. He made it up, Andre. And I've been tracking what he's been doing. He's been systematically firing people of color, keeping white staff up front. She'd brought documents, contracts, reviews, complaints, names of colleagues who'd just vanished. I need your help, she said. I'm taking this to court. I need someone inside, someone people trust, to coordinate. I'm also opening a new place in Harlem, a Japanese restaurant. I want you to help run it. Shared ownership. Full profit split for staff. Now, you might think I'd jump at that, but it wasn't that simple. Victoria wasn't offering charity. She was playing for keeps. She'd been ignored, belittled by Morrison for being a young woman, just like he'd underestimated me for being black. We both had something to prove. If I do this, I told her, it's not just for a job. It's about making sure nobody else gets crushed like I did. She smiled, real this time. That's exactly why I picked you. For 2 weeks, I called old co-workers, gathered statements, pieced together every little detail we could find. Marcus, still in the kitchen, smuggled out documents, quietly recorded conversations. We built a case so tight even Morrison's expensive lawyers couldn't wriggle through. Meanwhile, he strutted around, not knowing every move was being watched, every smug comment recorded. The real twist? Justice, in my experience, isn't loud. It's patient, slow, sometimes silent, but it builds up like water behind a dam. When the showdown came, it wasn't in the restaurant, it was in the boardroom. Victoria, 2 lawyers, and a corporate ethics rep sat across from Morrison. She dropped charts, stats, emails, then the recordings, his own voice talking about cleaning house, about appropriate clientele. The knockout punch. A video of Morrison toasting my firing with champagne. His face went gray. Who recorded this? He stammered. Victoria said, someone you thought was invisible. I walked in, box of files in hand, looked him right in the eye. You thought I was just another black waiter you could get rid of? Turns out, I was the guy keeping receipts. Morrison blustered, threatened, called his contacts, but it was done. Victoria fired him on the spot, with the whole board watching. He left carrying his career in a cardboard box. But here's the thing. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Free of the weight of other people's judgments. Free to finally breathe. Victoria kept her promise. Gave me co-ownership of the new restaurant, Kibbo, in Harlem. We hired everyone Morrison had tossed aside, and some he'd fired years before. Marcus ran the kitchen, Jenny greeted guests, Chef Hiroshi consulted, and every staff member shared the profits. The critics loved it, but what mattered more were the customers. People of all colors, sitting together, laughing, belonging. One day my mom called, her voice proud and a little in awe. Son, are you sure this isn't a dream? I just laughed. Meanwhile, Morrison couldn't get hired anywhere but a fast food joint in the suburbs. The best revenge, I realized, isn't revenge at all. It's building something so good, so just, that all the old hate just fades into irrelevance. And if you've ever been underestimated, if you know what it's like to be dismissed before you open your mouth, well, you know that the sweetest victory isn't seeing your enemy fall. It's rising so high they can't touch you. So what do you think? Is real justice even possible? Or is it just about seizing your moment and lifting others with you? Share your thoughts below, because maybe your story is the next one someone needs to hear.